At 11:47 p.m., Margaret Ellis stood frozen at lane 6 of a Baltimore grocery store as her debit card was declined for the third time. Behind her impatient customers sighed, while the 74-year-old quietly began removing bread, oatmeal, bananas, and soup from her bags. Lucy Brooks glanced at her phone. Balance $26.14. Margaret's groceries $25.87. Lucy's car was nearly out of gas. Her 8-year-old daughter needed breakfast tomorrow. Still, Lucy reached for her own card. "Keep the receipt," she whispered, handing Margaret the thin strip of paper. "Sometimes proof matters." The next morning, a lawyer in a navy suit walked into the store, placed that exact receipt on Lucy's counter, and asked, "Are you Lucy Brooks? Before we continue, tell us what country you're watching from and your local time. And if stories about ordinary people making extraordinary choices mean something to you, consider subscribing." 6 days before, Margaret Ellis stood trembling at lane 6. Lucy Brooks was sitting at a scratched kitchen table with 17 receipts spread in front of her like pieces of a puzzle she already knew she could not solve. It was 10:38 on a Sunday night in West Baltimore. Her apartment was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional metallic knock from an old radiator beneath the window. Across the room, 8-year-old Kayla Brooks slept beneath a faded purple blanket, one arm wrapped around a stuffed rabbit whose left ear had been sewn back on twice. Lucy pressed the buttons on a cheap calculator. Rent, electricity, groceries, gas. She stopped. Then she calculated everything again. The numbers did not improve the second time. Lucy had developed the habit of keeping every receipt years earlier. She stored them in brown envelopes marked by week, writing the dates in black pen across the front. Most people saw receipts as trash. Lucy saw them as memory with numbers attached. They told her exactly where the money had gone. And when there wasn't enough, they told her exactly why. She picked up a gas receipt for $18.40 and sighed. Outside, parked beneath a street lamp that flickered every few minutes, sat her 2008 Chevrolet Malibu. The paint had faded around the hood, the passenger window sometimes refused to close, and the check engine light had been glowing for so long that Lucy had begun thinking of it as part of the dashboard design. Her mechanic had warned her about the alternator. Soon, he had said. Soon was a dangerous word when you lived paycheck to paycheck. Lucy folded the receipt and placed it inside the envelope. A small voice came from the hallway. "Ma." Lucy turned. Kayla stood there barefoot, rubbing one eye. "What are you doing awake?" "I heard the calculator." Lucy smiled. "The calculator woke you up. You press the buttons, angry." "I do not." Kayla walked over and looked at the receipts. "Are we broke?" Lucy hated that word coming from her daughter. She pulled out the chair beside her. "We're budgeting. Is that different?" "Very." Kayla waited. Lucy tapped the envelope. "Being broke means you think there's nothing you can do. Budgeting means you tell every dollar where it needs to go." Kayla considered this seriously. "Where does this dollar go?" She pointed at a crumpled $1 bill beside Lucy's coffee mug. Lucy pushed it toward her. "Back into your field trip envelope." Kayla's class was visiting the Maryland Science Center on Friday. The trip cost $18. Lucy had 11 saved. Kayla quietly pushed the dollar back. "You can use it for the car." Lucy returned it. "The car doesn't get to steal your dinosaurs." "They have dinosaurs probably. You don't know. No?" Kayla grinned. Lucy sent her back to bed. Only after the bedroom door closed did Lucy allow the smile to disappear. The truth was that $7 might as well have been 70 that week. There had been a time when Lucy believed she would eventually stop counting money this carefully. At 26, she had enrolled in the paralegal studies program at Baltimore City Community College. She loved the work almost immediately. Not courtroom speeches, not television-style legal drama. She liked documents, dates, contradictions. She liked taking 40 pages of confusing information and finding the one sentence that changed what everything else meant. Her husband, Daniel, used to tease her about it. "You're the only person I know who enjoys paperwork." "Paperwork doesn't lie," she would answer. Daniel would laugh. "People fill out paperwork. Okay, paperwork lies. But badly." Then Daniel died unexpectedly after a highway accident. Within 3 months, Lucy's life became a sequence of decisions no 28-year-old widow was prepared to make. Funeral expenses, childcare, rent, insurance forms, work. School disappeared first. She told herself she would return the following semester. Then the semester after that. Eventually, her textbooks went into a box beneath her bed. When Kayla once asked why she had never finished college, Lucy did not say she had failed. Sometimes she told her you have to take a different road for a while. Harbor Market had been that different road. Lucy started there part-time and eventually took almost every shift she could get. She learned which elderly customers needed help reading the card machine, which mothers counted groceries before reaching the register, and which people watched the total with fear in their eyes. She never announced that she understood. That would have embarrassed them. Instead, she slowed down. "Your coupon worked. That cereal is cheaper in the larger box. You've got enough points for $5 off." Small sentences, small mercies. Kevin Parker, the assistant manager, noticed too. "You're good with customers," he told her one afternoon. Lucy smiled. That sounded almost like a compliment. It was. "Should I get it in writing?" Kevin shook his head. "But you spend too long with people." "There it is. Corporate tracks transaction times, Lucy. Mrs. Franklin is 83. Her fingers don't move at corporate speed." Kevin tried not to smile. He wasn't cruel. He was 39, divorced, permanently tired, and responsible for a store that seemed to develop 3 new problems every hour. "Just keep the line moving. I always do." Mostly she did. By Thursday, Lucy's financial situation had tightened further. The Malibu made a grinding noise when she started it. The electric bill arrived. Then Kayla reminded her the remaining $7 for the field trip was due Friday morning. Lucy stood in the kitchen staring at the refrigerator. 1/2 gallon of milk, 6 eggs, peanut butter, 3 apples. Enough if she was careful. She opened her banking app. 4414. After setting aside Kayla's $18 field trip payment, Lucy would have exactly $2,614 until payday. She stared at the number. $26.14. Gas and breakfast, she decided. Nothing else. At 4:10 that afternoon, Kevin called. "Any chance you can cover closing tonight?" Lucy looked toward Kayla, who was doing homework at the kitchen table. Her neighbor, Mrs. Holloway, could watch her. Lucy didn't want another shift. Her feet hurt. Her back hurt. She wanted to make grilled cheese help Kayla with multiplication and fall asleep before midnight. But she asked the only question that mattered. "How many hours? 6. I'll be there." At 10:55 p.m., Harbor Market had almost emptied. Lucy stood beneath the fluorescent lights of Lane 6, rubbing the ache between her thumb and wrist while the register printed another receipt. She handed it to an elderly customer. "Keep the receipt," Lucy said automatically. "Sometimes proof matters." The woman tucked it into her purse. Lucy glanced at the clock. Less than an hour until closing. Then the automatic doors opened. An elderly woman entered alone, pushing a cart slowly through the nearly empty store. Lucy noticed her only briefly. Gray coat, careful steps, a small handbag clutched close to her body. Her name was Margaret Ellis. And before midnight, Lucy Brooks would have 27 cents left to her name. At 11:36 p.m., Margaret Ellis approached Lane 6 with 12 items in her cart. Lucy noticed the way she had arranged them before she noticed the woman herself. Bread, oatmeal, bananas, eggs, 2 cans of chicken soup, a small jar of instant coffee, rice, applesauce, crackers, milk, and a bottle of generic pain reliever. Nothing indulgent, nothing that looked like it had been chosen for pleasure. Margaret wore a charcoal wool coat that had been carefully brushed despite its age. Her silver-streaked hair was pinned neatly at the back of her head, and a pair of thin reading glasses hung from a cord around her neck. "Evening," Lucy said. Margaret smiled faintly. "Almost morning. Feels like it. Lucy scanned the oatmeal. Beep. The bread, beep. The bananas. Margaret watched the screen as every number appeared. Lucy recognized that look. She had worn it herself. It was the look of someone adding faster in her head than the register could. When the total appeared, Margaret opened her handbag and took out a debit card. She inserted it. The machine processed for several seconds. Declined. Margaret frowned. I'm sorry, I may have entered the wrong number. No problem, Lucy said. Margaret tried again. Declined. A man waiting behind her shifted his basket to his other hand. Margaret removed the card, rubbed her thumb over its edge, then tried once more. Declined. This time the silence around the register felt different. Margaret stared at the screen. I know there's money in that account. Lucy lowered her voice. Sometimes banks flag transactions. Do you have another card? Margaret searched her handbag. Receipts, keys, a handkerchief, a small envelope. No second card. The man behind her exhaled loudly. Come on. Lucy looked at him. Sir, I'll be with you as soon as I can. I've got 2 things, and I'll scan both of them. Margaret's shoulders tightened. It's all right, honey. Just take off what I can't afford. She picked up the coffee first. Take this off. Lucy voided it. The eggs, too. Are you sure, yes? Lucy removed them. Margaret looked over the remaining groceries. Her fingers rested on the soup. And these. Lucy hesitated. Margaret gave a small nod. I'll manage. Lucy removed the cans. The man behind Margaret muttered something Lucy chose not to hear. Margaret reached into her handbag again, searching for cash. As she pulled out the small envelope, several papers slipped onto the floor. Oh, I've got them. Lucy stepped around the register. There were pharmacy receipts, a money order stub, and a folded yellow document. Lucy gathered them quickly. She had no intention of reading anything. Then a date caught her eye. November 12th. Beneath it were the words, Notice of Occupancy Termination. Another slip lay underneath, a rent money order receipt. November 14th. Lucy paused. Something about the sequence bothered her. Margaret reached down. I'm sorry. My papers are a mess. No, ma'am. Lucy handed them back. Margaret shoved them into the envelope. Lucy returned behind the register. Is everything okay with your apartment? Margaret's expression changed immediately. Not fear, exactly. Defense. It's being handled. Lucy understood the boundary. She nodded. Okay. Margaret counted the cash in her hand. $9. She looked at the groceries again. Take off the pain medicine. Lucy did. The milk. Another void. Margaret swallowed. The applesauce. Lucy looked at the screen, then at the bread and oatmeal still sitting beside the bags. What do you need to get this down to? Margaret smiled without humor. Apparently, $9. Lucy knew what that meant. Bread might stay. Oatmeal might stay. The rest would disappear one item at a time until survival fit inside $9. Lucy glanced toward the clock. 11:44. Then she reached beneath the counter for her phone. Her banking app opened. 26:14. She stared at it. Gas, breakfast, 3 days until payday. Kayla's voice seemed to return from the kitchen table. Are we broke? We're budgeting. Lucy locked the phone. What's the total, if you put everything back? Margaret blinked. Excuse me. Lucy restored the voided items except the coffee and eggs, which Margaret insisted she could live without. The register recalculated. 25.87. Lucy reached for her wallet. Margaret immediately understood. No, it's okay. No, sweetheart. Lucy pulled out her debit card. I can't let you do that. You're not letting me do anything. Margaret's voice hardened with dignity. I don't take charity. Lucy stopped. For a moment, neither woman moved. Then Lucy leaned slightly closer. My mother hated that word, too. Margaret looked at her. So let's not call it charity. What do we call it? Lucy glanced at the groceries. A rough Tuesday. It's Thursday. Lucy smiled. See, I'm tired enough that you should probably help me. Margaret almost laughed. Almost. Lucy inserted her card. Please, Margaret whispered. Lucy looked at her. This doesn't fix your life. It doesn't fix mine either. It just gets you through tonight. Margaret's eyes lowered. Behind them, the impatient customer had gone quiet. Lucy entered her PIN. Approved. The register drawer opened. For some reason, that ordinary mechanical sound felt enormous. Lucy packed the groceries carefully. Soup on the bottom, bread on top, pain reliever in the side pocket. The printer began producing the receipt. Margaret reached into her handbag. I can give you the $9. Keep it. For what Lucy thought about the yellow notice. For tomorrow. Margaret stared at her. Lucy tore off the receipt and handed it across the counter. Keep the receipt. Sometimes proof matters. Margaret looked down at the thin paper. Something passed across her face. Why did you say that? I say it to everybody. No. Margaret touched the envelope in her handbag. Why did you ask about my apartment? Lucy considered pretending she had seen nothing. Instead, she answered carefully. I noticed a date on your notice. Then I saw the date on your rent receipt. Margaret's eyes narrowed. What about them? I don't know enough to tell you. I could be completely wrong. You're a cashier. There was no insult in the words, only confusion. Lucy nodded. Tonight I am? Margaret studied her name tag. Lucy Brooks. Yes, ma'am. I'm Margaret Ellis. Lucy smiled. Nice to meet you, Margaret. Margaret folded the 25.87 receipt in half. Then, instead of putting it loose in her handbag, she slid it carefully inside the envelope with the housing notice. Thank you, Lucy. You're welcome. Margaret pushed her cart toward the exit. At the automatic doors, she stopped once and looked back. Lucy had already turned toward the next customer. The man placed his 2 items on the belt. I was being a jerk, he said quietly. Lucy scanned his frozen pizza. Long day, yeah? Then let's call that a rough Tuesday, too. It's Thursday. Lucy looked at him. He laughed. After he left, the store finally became quiet. Lucy took out her phone. She opened the banking app. 0.27 cents. For several seconds, she simply stared. Then she slipped the phone back into her pocket and closed the register. Outside, Margaret Ellis sat beneath a parking lot light with the groceries beside her. She opened the envelope. She compared the yellow notice with the rent receipt. Then she unfolded the new Harbor Market receipt. At the bottom was the transaction time. 11:46 p.m. Margaret thought about Lucy's words. Sometimes proof matters. She reached for her phone and called a number she had been too frightened to call all week. Baltimore Community Legal Center, a recorded voice answered. Margaret held the 3 pieces of paper together, and for the first time in days, she did not throw any of them away. At 12:21 a.m., Lucy's Chevrolet Malibu coughed twice at a red light on North Avenue. Lucy tightened both hands around the steering wheel. No. The fuel gauge had been sitting below empty since she left Harbor Market, but she had convinced herself she could make it home. The engine sputtered again, then died. A horn sounded behind her. Lucy turned on the hazard lights and rested her forehead against the steering wheel. 27 cents. She laughed once quietly because the alternative was crying, and she was too tired for that. With the help of another driver, she pushed the Malibu onto the shoulder. Her apartment was less than a mile away. Lucy grabbed her work bag and started walking. The November air cut through her supermarket uniform. She shoved her hands into her pockets and pictured Margaret's grocery bags. Bread, soup, pain medicine. At least somebody was going home with what she needed. By the time Lucy reached her building, it was after 1. Mrs. Holloway, her neighbor, was asleep on the couch while Kayla slept in the bedroom. Lucy covered the older woman with a blanket before waking her gently. "Car trouble," Mrs. Holloway whispered. "Gas trouble." Mrs. Holloway understood immediately. She offered Lucy $20. Lucy refused. "You watch my child every time Kevin calls me in. You've already done enough." At 6:15 the next morning, Kayla found her mother standing in the kitchen making toast. "Where's the car?" Lucy stopped spreading peanut butter. Kayla was observant in ways that sometimes felt unfair. "Taking a little vacation." "Where North Avenue?" Kayla stared. "It ran out of gas." "Oh." Lucy wrapped 2 pieces of toast in a paper towel and handed them to her. "We're taking the bus." Outside, dawn had barely reached Baltimore. Mother and daughter stood beneath a bus shelter while traffic moved through wet streets. Kayla leaned against Lucy. Was it because of the old lady? Lucy looked down. What, the money? Lucy had mentioned Margaret briefly the night before when Kayla woke as she came home. "You gave her all of it, didn't you?" "Not all. How much is left?" Lucy considered lying. 27 cents. Kayla's eyes widened. "Mom, I know. What about breakfast? You're holding breakfast. What about tomorrow?" Lucy looked toward the approaching bus. "We'll figure out tomorrow. Kayla climbed aboard without answering. They found 2 seats near the back. After several blocks, Kayla asked, "Why did you do it?" Lucy watched row houses pass outside the window. She wanted to give her daughter a beautiful answer, something memorable. Instead, she gave her the truth. "I don't know." Kayla frowned. "You don't?" "I saw her taking food out of the bags. She wasn't asking anybody for anything. She was trying to make herself need less." Lucy paused. "And I knew that feeling." Kayla looked down at her shoes. "But we need things too, we do." "So how do you know when to help?" Lucy thought about that. "You don't always know. That's not helpful." Lucy smiled. "No, it isn't." Kayla leaned against her again. Lucy kissed the top of her head. "Sometimes you can't fix somebody's whole life. Sometimes you just help them get through one bad hour." Kayla remained quiet until they reached school. Before getting off the bus, she turned. "Did she get the soup?" Lucy nodded. "Yeah, okay." That was all she said. Lucy arrived at Harbor Market 17 minutes late. Kevin Parker was waiting. "Office." Lucy removed her coat. "Good morning to you too." "Lucy." The tone told her humor would not save her. Kevin closed the office door behind them. A printed transaction report sat on his desk. Lucy recognized the timestamp, 11:46 p.m. Her stomach tightened. "You used your personal debit card during a customer transaction last night." "Yes." "Why her card declined?" "That doesn't answer my question. She was 74 years old and taking soup out of her grocery bag because she couldn't afford it." Kevin rubbed his forehead. "You know, employees aren't supposed to insert themselves financially into customer transactions while clocked in. I wasn't giving her a loan. That isn't the point. Then what is the point is boundaries." Lucy crossed her arms. Kevin sighed. "Corporate rights policies because situations get complicated. What if she comes back claiming you pressured her? What if another customer expects the same thing? What if somebody starts deliberately choosing your lane?" "She didn't ask me." "I believe you." That surprised her. Kevin turned the report around. "I'm not accusing you of sin. I'm telling you that you violated procedure." Lucy looked at the paper. "So what happens? Written warning." Her jaw tightened. "You're writing me up for buying groceries. I'm documenting a policy violation. Same ink." Kevin looked tired rather than angry. "Lucy, I have 12 people on this shift and corporate reviewing labor numbers every week. I don't get to run this place based on what feels right." Lucy signed. Then Kevin glanced at the clock. "And you're late. My car ran out of gas." "Because you spent your gas money." Lucy said nothing. Kevin understood. For a moment his managerial expression disappeared. "You're a good person, Lucy." She looked at him. But being good doesn't protect you from consequences." Lucy folded her copy of the warning. "Apparently not." At 9:42 a.m., she returned to Lane 6. She had been working less than 15 minutes when a man entered through the automatic doors. He was tall, perhaps 45, with close-cropped hair and a navy suit beneath a dark overcoat. He carried a leather folder. He didn't take a cart. He didn't look at the shelves. He walked directly toward customer service. Lucy noticed him only because he spoke to the attendant who pointed toward lane 6. The man turned. Their eyes met. He approached slowly. "Good morning. Morning. Are you Lucy Brooks?" Lucy's hand stopped above the register. "Yes." The man opened his leather folder. He removed a folded piece of paper and placed it on the counter. Lucy recognized the Harbor Market logo. Then the total. 25 by 87. Her heartbeat changed. "Where did you get that Margaret Ellis?" Lucy immediately stepped closer. "Is she okay? She's safe. What happened?" The man studied her for a second. "My name is Marcus Reed." He reached into his coat and produced a business card. Baltimore Community Legal Center, attorney at law. Lucy looked from the card to the receipt. "Why does Margaret need a lawyer?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. Instead, he tapped one finger against the receipt. "She told me you noticed something last night." Lucy felt the supermarket sounds fade around her. "What did she say? That you saw a housing notice?" Lucy's eyes narrowed. "I barely saw it. But you asked about her apartment. I saw 2 dates. Marcus became very still. "What dates?" Before Lucy could answer, Kevin emerged from the office and looked toward the unfamiliar man standing at her register. Marcus picked up the receipt, but left his business card behind. "Ms. Brooks," he said quietly, "I didn't come here to give you back $26. Lucy stared at him. "Then why are you here?" Marcus glanced at the warning notice, still folded beside Lucy's register. Then he looked directly at her. "Because I need to know how a grocery store cashier noticed something in 30 seconds that 3 other people missed." Lucy stared at Marcus Reed across lane 6. For several seconds, the only sound between them was the scanner at the neighboring register. "I didn't notice anything important," she said. Marcus opened his leather folder. "Margaret thinks you did." Kevin Parker was still watching from several feet away. Lucy glanced toward him. "I'm working." "I can wait," Marcus said. That wasn't an invitation. For the first time, something close to amusement crossed his face. "I'll still wait." 20 minutes later, Lucy found Marcus sitting at a small table near the supermarket's front windows with 2 untouched coffees. She remained standing. "I have 10 minutes. Marcus pushed 1 coffee toward her. "I didn't ask for coffee. I bought it before realizing you might interpret everything as charity." Lucy looked at him. "Margaret told you that?" "She told me enough." Lucy sat. Marcus placed the 25/87 receipt between them. "Margaret contacted our office shortly after midnight." Lucy frowned. "That fast?" "She has been receiving notices from her property management company for several weeks. Yesterday she received one claiming her occupancy could be terminated." "Why?" "That's what we're determining." Lucy wrapped both hands around the coffee without drinking. "Is she going to lose her apartment? I don't know." The answer surprised her. Most people trying to reassure someone would have said no. Marcus didn't. "What exactly did you see?" he asked. Lucy closed her eyes briefly. "A yellow notice? What date? November 12th. Marcus stopped writing. "You're sure?" "I think so." "You think or you know?" Lucy disliked his tone. "I had maybe 3 seconds to look at a stranger's paperwork while picking it off a grocery store floor. Then 3 seconds is what we work with." Lucy leaned back. "There was also a money order receipt. What date? November 14th. Marcus watched her carefully. "Anything else?" The notice said something about delivery, personal service maybe. When Lucy searched her memory, "The 12th, I think. Marcus wrote something." "Why did that bother you?" "Because the money order stub looked like rent. That doesn't necessarily conflict with a notice, I know." "You do?" Lucy's eyes lifted. Marcus waited. She sighed. "I studied paralegal work." "For how long?" "Long enough to know one date doesn't prove anything. We're Baltimore City Community College. Certificate no. Why not? Lucy's expression hardened. That relevant to Margaret's case, Marcus closed his pen. No. Then let's stay with Margaret. Something shifted in his face. Not offense, respect. He reopened the pen. Fair. Lucy explained exactly what she remembered. The notice had been folded. She could not confirm the full wording. Margaret had appeared uncomfortable when asked about the apartment, so Lucy had stopped. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, he said Margaret was in the hospital on November 12th. Lucy stared. For what? Nothing life-threatening. But she was admitted from the 11th through the 13th, and the notice says it was handed to her. That is one interpretation of the service record. Lucy looked toward the receipt. Then somebody's wrong. Possibly. Possibly documents contain errors. People remember things incorrectly. Systems generate dates automatically. My job is not to choose the most satisfying explanation, it's to establish what happened. Lucy finally drank the coffee. It was terrible. She drank again anyway. Why come to me? Because Margaret described the conversation she shouldn't have. She was impressed. She was embarrassed. Marcus nodded slowly. Yes, she was. That answer softened Lucy slightly. She said you paid for her groceries. Marcus continued, but that wasn't the part that interested me. Lucy raised an eyebrow. She said you looked at two pieces of paper for a few seconds and asked the one question nobody else had asked. What question? Whether everything was okay with her apartment. Lucy looked down. Marcus reached into his folder and removed a business card. He slid it across the table. I run part of the housing intake team at Baltimore Community Legal Center. I saw the card. We're short an evening intake assistant. Lucy almost laughed. You came here to offer me a job, no? That stopped her. I came here to offer you an interview. Marcus explained that one temporary employee had left unexpectedly. The center needed someone for 6 weeks, mostly evenings helping clients organize paperwork, record timelines, and prepare files for attorneys. It's temporary, he said. No guarantee afterward. Lucy picked up the card. I already have a job. I noticed. I have a daughter. I assumed you had responsibilities. And you think I can gamble my paycheck because I noticed a date? No. Marcus leaned forward. I think you should decide whether 6 weeks is worth exploring. That's different. Lucy studied him. Are you offering this because I paid for Margaret's groceries? No. How do I know? Because kindness isn't a qualification. The sentence hit harder than she expected. Marcus continued. What you did for Margaret was generous. It may also have been financially foolish. Lucy nearly smiled. My bank account agrees, but you observed something under pressure. You remembered details. You respected a client's boundary when she didn't want to discuss private information. Those are qualifications. Lucy looked through the window at buses moving along the street. For one dangerous second, she allowed herself to imagine it. A desk, case files, the unfinished part of her life reopening. Then reality returned. My husband died. Marcus said nothing. I was 28. Kayla was 4. School became the easiest thing to cut. I'm sorry. I don't need sorry. I know. Lucy looked at him. Marcus checked his watch. Her break was almost over. So what happens if I interview you? You take an assessment. And if I fail, you go back to lane 6. And if I pass, you get a second interview. Lucy gave a dry laugh. That's your big offer. That's the entire offer. No rescue, no promise, no envelope of money. Just a door that might remain closed. Marcus stood. Lucy expected some inspiring final sentence. Instead, he buttoned his coat. If you want the interview, earn the rest yourself. Lucy's eyes narrowed. You always talk to people like that. Only the ones I think can handle it. He walked away. Lucy remained at the table with the business card. When she returned to lane 6, she placed it beside the written warning Kevin had given her. One piece of paper documented what she had done wrong. The other offered no guarantee that she could do anything better. That night after Kayla fell asleep, Lucy took an old box from beneath her bed. Inside were textbooks, notebooks, and a student identification card she had not touched in 4 years. She opened one textbook. Her handwriting filled the margins. Dates matter. Sequence matters. Proof matters. Lucy sat on the bedroom floor for a long time. Then she reached into her pocket. Marcus Reed's business card was still there. For the first time in years, the road Lucy had left behind did not look completely closed. It simply looked difficult. And somehow that frightened her more. Lucy carried Marcus Reed's business card for 3 days without calling him. It traveled everywhere with her. In the pocket of her Harbor Market vest. Beside the gas receipt, after Mrs. Holloway finally convinced Lucy to borrow $15. On the kitchen table, while Kayla practiced multiplication. Once Lucy nearly threw it away. Instead, she moved it to the refrigerator beneath a magnet shaped like a strawberry. Kayla noticed. "Who's Marcus Reed?" "A lawyer. Are you in trouble?" Lucy smiled. "Not yet." "Then why do you have a lawyer? I don't." That was exactly the problem. Marcus had not offered rescue. He had offered uncertainty. Harbor Market was exhausting, but Lucy understood it. She knew the register codes, the schedules, the customers, even the exact sound the freezer made before maintenance needed to be called. The legal center belonged to a version of Lucy she had packed away 4 years earlier. On Sunday evening, she finally called. Marcus answered after 3 rings. "Reed, this is Lucy Brooks." A pause. "I know, how you're the only person I gave that card to this week who sounded annoyed before saying hello." Lucy almost hung up. Instead, she asked, "When's the interview?" "Tuesday, 6:30 p.m. Baltimore Community Legal Center occupied the 2nd floor of an old brick building downtown. There was no marble lobby, no impressive reception desk, no attorneys moving around in expensive suits. The carpet was worn. One fluorescent light flickered. A printer near reception had a handwritten sign taped to it, "Please do not kick." Lucy liked the place immediately. Marcus met her in a small conference room. A woman named Rachel Davis from operations joined them. Rachel shook Lucy's hand. "Marcus says you have some prior paralegal coursework. Some. And no legal employment experience. Number good?" Lucy blinked. Rachel smiled. "Then we won't waste time pretending you know things you don't." A folder was placed in front of her. The assessment began. It concerned a fictional tenant named Robert Hayes, who had received several notices from a landlord. Lucy was given 20 pages, lease excerpts, payment records, maintenance requests, 2 notices, a handwritten statement. 45 minutes, Rachel said. Build a chronology. Identify anything you'd want an attorney to review. List questions you'd ask the client. Lucy picked up the first page. For 10 minutes, confidence returned. Dates, payments, addresses. Then she reached a procedural question and froze. She used to know this. She could almost see the textbook page. Almost. Lucy wrote an answer, crossed it out, wrote another. At 28 minutes, Marcus walked past the glass wall outside. Lucy ignored him. At 37 minutes, she noticed something. One maintenance request listed Robert Hayes' apartment as 3B. The notice claimed he had vacated 3B. But another document had been mailed to 8B. Lucy circled it. Then she went back. The emergency contact number had also changed between documents. She wrote confirm correct unit and mailing address before assuming notice was received. Then ask who physically received notice. Then verify where tenant was on date of alleged service. Time expired. Rachel collected the folder. Lucy sat back. She knew she had made mistakes. Marcus and Rachel left for 15 minutes. When they returned, Marcus placed her assessment on the table. "You missed the response deadline. I know. You identified the wrong procedural form. I know. You also caught the address discrepancy." Lucy waited. Rachel sat opposite her. Most applicants found the deadline. Lucy's stomach dropped. Most did not ask why a document supposedly delivered to apartment 3B was mailed to 8B 3 days later. Lucy looked at Marcus. He said nothing. Rachel continued, "Why did you ask where the tenant physically was?" "Because paperwork tells you what somebody says happened. People tell you what could have happened. Marcus finally spoke. And which do you believe neither automatically? His eyebrow lifted. Lucy shrugged. You verify. Rachel smiled. The second interview lasted another half hour. At the end, Marcus folded his hands. The position is 18 hours a week. Evenings mostly. 6 weeks guaranteed. Lucy did the math immediately. It paid more per hour than Harbor Market. Not enough hours to replace it. I'd have to keep my cashier shifts. That's your decision. What happens after 6 weeks? Maybe nothing. Lucy appreciated the answer and hated it. Marcus slid an employment form toward her. We'd like to hire you. She stared at the paper. There should have been triumph. Instead, Lucy felt afraid. What if I'm bad at it? Marcus leaned back. Then 6 weeks from now you'll know. That evening, Lucy signed. Her life became smaller before it became larger. She woke at 5:45, got Kayla ready, worked Harbor Market, picked Kayla up, made dinner, left her with Mrs. Holloway 3 evenings each week, then took the bus downtown. At the legal center, Lucy learned intake software confidentiality rules and how to ask strangers questions about the worst moments of their lives without making them feel interrogated. At home, she reopened her old textbooks. One night, Kayla found her asleep at the kitchen table with a highlighter still in her hand. She draped a blanket over Lucy's shoulders. By the second week, Lucy was exhausted. But something else was happening. She was remembering herself. Not the widow, not the cashier, not the woman with 27 cents, the woman who liked puzzles, the woman who noticed dates, the woman who believed details mattered. On Thursday evening, Marcus placed a cardboard file box on Lucy's desk. Your next intake. Lucy opened it. The name printed across the folder stopped her. Margaret Ellis. Lucy looked toward Marcus. You assigned her to me, I assigned paperwork to an intake assistant. That's not what I asked. No. Marcus walked away. Lucy opened the file. Inside were utility bills, pharmacy records, money order stubs, and dozens of receipts. At the bottom lay the yellow housing notice she had seen on the supermarket floor. Lucy lifted it carefully. This time she had more than 3 seconds. She read every line. Then she read it again. And halfway down the page, Lucy Brooks found the first detail that made her reach for a pen. Margaret Ellis arrived at the Baltimore Community Legal Center at 6:12 the following evening, carrying a blue cookie tin. Lucy recognized her before the receptionist finished saying her name. Margaret stopped when she saw Lucy behind the intake desk. For a moment, neither woman spoke. Then Margaret looked toward Marcus Reed's office. Oh no, Lucy stood. What I got you into this? You didn't. I told that lawyer about you. You definitely did. Margaret's face tightened with guilt. Lucy smiled. But I came here myself. Margaret looked unconvinced. He didn't make you. Marcus Reed couldn't make rainfall if the clouds didn't agree to the paperwork first. Margaret laughed. It was the first time Lucy had heard her do it. They sat in a small interview room. Margaret placed the cookie tin on the table. What's that, my life, apparently? She opened it. Receipts filled the inside. Pharmacy receipts curled with age, utility payment confirmations, money order stubs, grocery receipts, medical appointment cards. Lucy picked up one carefully. Why did you keep all this? My sister. Denise Margaret nodded. Denise kept everything. Her voice changed when she said the name. She used to say throwing away a receipt before the month ended was inviting trouble into the house. Lucy smiled. I would have liked her. You would have driven each other crazy. Margaret looked down at the tin. She died in March. I'm sorry. Margaret did not answer immediately. Finally, she said, people keep saying that. Then they go home and you still have to figure out what to do with somebody's coffee cup. Lucy said nothing. She understood enough not to fill the silence. Margaret and Denise had lived together in the same apartment for nearly 17 years. The original lease had been complicated. Denise's name appeared as primary tenant on older records. Margaret had been listed differently over the years: occupant, household member, authorized resident. When the building changed management, those distinctions suddenly mattered. 3 months after Denise died, Margaret said they started asking whether I had the right to stay. "Did you sign anything new? They gave me papers. Did you read them?" Margaret's mouth tightened. I tried. Lucy waited. The words made me feel stupid. "You're not. I know that now." Margaret looked toward the door. "At 74, you learn people have a particular voice they use when they think you're old and confused." So I stopped asking. Lucy knew that voice, too. She had heard customers use it with elderly people at the register. Slow, exaggerated, impatient kindness. "What happened next?" Notices. Margaret pulled out the yellow sheet. Lucy had already reviewed the copy. Notice of occupancy termination. The management company alleged that Margaret had failed to establish continuing lawful occupancy after Denise's death. The notice also stated that service had been made, personally, on November 12th. Lucy tapped the date. "Where were you that day?" Margaret frowned. "Hospital. All day. From the 11th until the 13th. "Which hospital, Mercy?" Lucy wrote it down. "Do you have discharge papers?" Margaret searched the tin. "No. Could you get them?" "I think so." Lucy made another note. Then she began sorting. Not by type, by date. August, September, October, November. A pharmacy receipt showed Margaret purchasing blood pressure medication 2 blocks from her apartment. A utility confirmation showed regular electricity payments. Several grocery receipts were connected to the same loyalty account and neighborhood. A money order stub matched the rent amount. Lucy built a timeline across the table. Margaret watched. "What are you doing trying to see your life in order?" "My life was never in order. The paper version might be." For nearly an hour, the table disappeared beneath evidence of ordinary existence. $23 at a pharmacy, $46 at a grocery store, a utility payment, a bus pass reload. None of it looked important alone. Together, something began to emerge. Margaret had not appeared suddenly after Denise died. She had been living there, paying there, receiving medical correspondence there, buying groceries nearby, existing there. Lucy picked up a money order stub dated November 14th. "This is what I saw at Harbor Market." Margaret leaned closer. "My rent." "You bought the money order 2 days after they say the notice was personally delivered." "Yes." "Did you take it to the management office? I put it through the rent slot. Was it accepted? They cashed it." Lucy stopped. "You're sure?" Margaret reached deeper into the tin. Another document emerged. A bank photocopy Denise had once taught her to request. Lucy stared at it. The money order had been processed. She stood and walked to Marcus's office. He was reading at his desk. "Do you have a minute? If this is about Margaret, bring the file." Lucy returned with the yellow notice, hospital dates, and payment records. Marcus listened. Then he leaned back. "The rent payment is useful, and the service date is wrong." "Potentially." "She was hospitalized." "If records confirm it." "They will." Marcus folded his arms. Lucy recognized the expression. "What one bad service entry doesn't prove systematic misconduct. I didn't say it did. You were about to." Lucy exhaled. He was right. She hated that. Marcus pointed toward the documents. This could be clerical error. Wrong date, wrong service method, wrong tenant. So we ignore it. No. Marcus pushed the file back. "We prove what we can prove." Lucy returned to the interview room. Margaret was putting receipts back into the cookie tin. "Is it bad?" Lucy sat. "It's incomplete." "That sounds bad. It means we need more." Margaret looked tired. I don't know what else I have." Lucy looked at the table. 17 years could not fit into one cookie tin. There would be utility histories, medical records, old correspondence, neighbors, lease documents, payment histories. Lucy placed her hand over the lid before Margaret could close it. "Don't throw anything away." Margaret gave her a weary smile. "Keep the receipts, especially the boring ones. Margaret laughed softly. Lucy looked through the glass wall towards Marcus. He was watching them, not supervising. Watching. Lucy turned back to the mountain of insignificant paper. One error did not prove anything. Marcus was right. But somewhere beneath 17 years of grocery runs, prescriptions, rent payments, and ordinary Tuesdays was the story of a woman a property file seemed determined to reduce to a technicality. Lucy picked up the next receipt. Then we keep looking. Outside the interview room, Marcus heard her. For the first time since hiring Lucy Brooks, he stopped thinking of her as the cashier who had noticed a date. He began thinking of her as someone who might know how to build a case. By the third week, Lucy Brooks had learned that people rarely arrived at the Baltimore Community Legal Center carrying only a legal problem. They brought grocery bags filled with documents, hospital bracelets, unopened envelopes, photographs, utility shutoff warnings. Sometimes they brought nothing because they had thrown everything away out of fear, and almost everyone apologized. Sorry, these aren't organized. Sorry, I don't understand this. Sorry to bother you. Lucy began hearing that last sentence so often that it bothered her. One Tuesday evening, a retired bus driver named Walter Simmons sat across from her, holding an eviction notice. I probably waited too long, he said. When did you receive it? October? This says November. Walter shrugged. Maybe November. Lucy looked closer. Do you still have the envelope? He pulled it from his coat. Lucy compared the postmark. Something tightened inside her. 2 nights later, a widow named Patricia Cole arrived from the same apartment complex where Margaret lived. Different floor. Same management company. Similar notice. Then came Raymond Hill, a former cafeteria worker living on disability benefits. Again, the same company. Again, confusing dates. Again, records suggesting something did not align cleanly with what the notices claimed. At 8:40 p.m., Lucy carried 3 folders into Marcus Reed's office. I think we have a pattern. Marcus didn't look up. Those are dangerous words. Why? Because once people think they've found a pattern, they start making every new fact fit it. Lucy put the folders down. So, look, Marcus did. Walter's notice, Patricia's payment records, Raymond's mailing envelope. Marcus spent 10 minutes comparing them. Lucy waited. Finally, he said, interesting. That's it. That's what evidence looks like before it becomes evidence. What does that even mean? It means keep collecting facts and stop trying to win the case before we have one. Lucy folded her arms. You could just say I might be right, you might be wrong, you're exhausting. So I've been told. At Harbor Market, Lucy's schedule was becoming another problem. Kevin Parker caught her near the employee lockers on Friday. You declined Saturday again. I have Kayla. You used to take Saturdays. I also used to not have a second job. Kevin lowered his voice. Corporate gave me fewer labor hours this month. Lucy understood immediately. How many are you cutting 6 from your schedule next week? Kevin? I need people who can cover. I've covered for this store for 4 years. I know. Then why am I the first one losing hours? You're not. That did not make rent cheaper. Lucy walked home that evening carrying numbers in her head. Legal Center, 18 hours. Harbor Market reduced again. Rent, electric, bus fare, groceries. By the time she reached the apartment, she had already made the decision 3 times. Quit the Legal Center. Ask Kevin for her old schedule. Return to the life she knew how to survive. At 11:16 p.m., Lucy sat at the kitchen table with receipts spread everywhere. She tried calculating again. Then again, nothing worked. Finally, she shoved the calculator away. Several receipts slid onto the floor. I'm done. Kayla appeared in the hallway. Lucy looked up. You're supposed to be asleep. You said that loud. Sorry. Kayla picked up one of the receipts. Are we broke? Lucy almost smiled at the familiar question. Go back to bed. Instead, Kayla gathered the scattered papers. Where's the envelope? I don't care. Kayla looked at her mother carefully. That frightened Lucy more than any question. She did not want her daughter learning that exhaustion looked like surrender. But tonight, Lucy did not have a better performance available. I might stop working at the lawyer place. Did they fire you? No. Did you do something wrong? No. Then why? Lucy stared at the calculator. Because sometimes wanting something doesn't mean you can afford it. Kayla disappeared into the kitchen pantry. A minute later she returned, carrying an empty cereal box. What are you doing? Kayla sat on the floor with scissors. Making something. She cut the top away, folded the cardboard, and taped the sides. Lucy was too tired to stop her. Kayla found a black marker. Across the front she wrote in uneven capital letters, "Things that matter." Then she began placing receipts inside. Lucy watched. What is that you keep saying receipts matter? Sometimes. Well, these are the ones that matter. Kayla picked up Lucy's first pay stub from the legal center, which had been sitting beneath a stack of bills. She dropped it inside. Then a bus receipt. Then the receipt from the gas station after Lucy got the Malibu running again. Why does that one matter? Because we got the car back. Lucy laughed despite herself. Kayla placed the cardboard box in front of her. Keep it. Lucy touched the words. Things that matter. The box was crooked. One side had a picture of cartoon cereal marshmallows. It was ridiculous. It was perfect. Lucy did not decide to keep the legal job forever. She made a smaller decision. One more week. That was all. On Monday evening, the next intake file landed on her desk. A 68-year-old woman named Gloria Benton. Same apartment complex. Same management company. Lucy read the notice. Then she checked the alleged service date. Gloria had attached a hospital parking receipt from that afternoon because she had driven her husband to chemotherapy. Lucy went still. She opened Margaret's file. November 12th, Walters. November 6th, Patricia's. October 29th, different residents, different circumstances, similar inconsistencies. Lucy carried the files to Marcus. This time she did not say she had found a pattern. She placed them on his desk. Marcus read silently. One page, then another, then another. His expression changed. When did Gloria come in tonight? Did you lead her toward any answers? No. Did she know about Margaret number Walter? No. Marcus reached for his phone. Lucy stood motionless. Who are you calling our supervising attorney? Lucy looked at the folders. A week earlier, they had seemed like unrelated stories told by frightened people. Now the papers were beginning to speak to one another. Marcus covered the receiver. Lucy. Yes, make copies of everything. She nodded. And Lucy? She stopped. Don't lose a single receipt. That night, Lucy went home and placed the legal center pay stub inside Kayla's cereal box. For the first time, things that matter did not feel like a child's label. It felt like an instruction. The argument began over a woman named Teresa Miles. Teresa was 59, worked mornings in a hospital laundry room, and had spent most of her intake appointment twisting a tissue between her fingers. Her landlord had sent 2 notices in 3 weeks. She was convinced she would be homeless by Christmas. Lucy spent 40 minutes organizing her documents. When Teresa finally stood to leave, she hesitated at the door. Am I going to lose my apartment? Lucy looked at the fear in her face. We'll figure something out. Teresa exhaled. Thank you. After she left, Marcus Reed appeared beside Lucy's desk. Don't say that again. Lucy looked up. Say what? We'll figure something out. I was trying to calm her down. You made the promise. I did not. That's how she heard it. Lucy closed Teresa's folder. What was I supposed to say? Good luck sleeping tonight. You tell her the truth. I did. No. You told her what you wanted to be true. Lucy pushed her chair back. Sometimes people need hope, Marcus. Hope isn't a case strategy. Neither is making people feel like a file number. His expression hardened. Conference room. I'm working. Now. Lucy followed him inside and shut the door harder than necessary. Marcus remained standing. You're good at this job. Doesn't sound like it. That's why I'm correcting you. Lucy crossed her arms. You know what people do when they come here? They apologize for not understanding documents written, so nobody understands them. They apologize for being scared. Half of them apologize for taking up a chair. And And maybe they need somebody to sound like they believe they matter. They do matter. You don't always sound like it. Silence. Lucy immediately wondered if she had gone too far. Marcus walked toward the window. For several seconds he watched evening traffic below. My mother's name was Elaine. Lucy said nothing. She cleaned office buildings at night and worked a school cafeteria during the day. Marcus loosened his tie. When I was 15, a notice came to our apartment. Lucy's anger began draining away. My mother read it 3 times, he continued. Then she put it inside a kitchen drawer. What kind of notice eviction? Lucy leaned against the table. She didn't tell you. She told me it was nothing. Marcus gave a quiet, humorless laugh. Elaine Reed could stretch 1 chicken across 4 dinners. She could replace a zipper without taking off a coat. She could remember every birthday in our family. He looked at Lucy, but legal language terrified her. The landlord claimed unpaid rent. Elaine believed there had been a mistake, but she was ashamed to ask for help. She thought educated people would hear her questions and know she wasn't one of them. What happened? We lost the apartment. Marcus's answer was flat. No dramatic pause, no bitterness. That made it heavier. We spent 6 weeks sleeping in my aunt's living room. Years later in law school, I learned there were problems with the notice. Maybe enough to challenge it. Lucy looked down. That's why you became a housing lawyer. Partly. Marcus returned to the table. When I started, I wanted to save everybody. Lucy almost smiled. I was unbearable. You still have moments. He ignored that. I told clients we'd fight. I told families not to worry. I told people we would find a way. His voice lowered. Then I learned that sometimes there isn't enough evidence. Sometimes deadlines have passed. Sometimes the law allows something that feels deeply wrong. He sat. I watched people hear promises I couldn't keep. Lucy understood now. Marcus was not protecting himself from clients. He was protecting clients from his hope. So you stopped promising anything. I started promising only what I control. What's that I'll read everything, that I'll tell them the truth, that I'll show up prepared. Lucy sat opposite him. My mother hated asking for help too, she said. Marcus looked at her. She'd rather eat crackers for dinner than let someone know she was short on groceries. Lucy thought of Margaret removing soup from the belt. Maybe that's why I paid. Maybe. Lucy rubbed her forehead. So what should I have told Teresa? Marcus thought. That you don't know yet. That sounds terrible. Then add something true? Lucy waited. Tell her she won't have to read the paperwork alone. Lucy looked at him. That's almost compassionate. Don't spread it around. The tension broke. But something important remained. Marcus opened Teresa's folder. Compassion matters, Lucy, but compassion without skill can hurt people. Lucy nodded. And skill without compassion can make them leave before you help them. Marcus considered that. Fair. He stood and walked toward the door. Come with me. He led Lucy to a filing room and removed a stack of folders. Margaret Ellis, Walter Simmons, Patricia Cole, Raymond Hill, Gloria Benton. More names Lucy had never seen. Marcus placed them in a box. I want a chronology for every case. Lucy stared at the pile. By when Monday? It's Thursday. I own a calendar. Lucy gave him a look. What exactly am I looking for? I'm not telling you. Why? Because if I tell you what I suspect, you'll look for evidence that proves me right. He pushed the box toward her. Tell me what the records say instead. Lucy lifted it. It was heavier than expected. At the door, Marcus spoke again. One more thing. She turned. Tomorrow call Teresa. And tell her what Marcus nodded toward the folder. The truth. The next morning, Lucy called. Ms. Miles, this is Lucy Brooks from the Legal Center. Teresa immediately asked the same question. Am I losing my apartment? Lucy looked at the notes in front of her. I don't know yet. Silence. But we are reviewing everything you brought us, and you're not going to have to make sense of those papers alone. Teresa exhaled. Okay. It was not a promise of victory, but Teresa stayed on the phone. That weekend, Lucy covered her kitchen table with case files after Kayla went to bed. She opened the cereal box marked Things That Matter and placed her own household receipts aside to make room. Then she began building timelines. Dates, payments, notices, addresses. Hour after hour, patterns appeared and disappeared. Some meant nothing, others bothered her. At 1:26 Sunday morning, Lucy stopped. She pulled 3 folders closer, then a 4th. Her pulse quickened. The same small inconsistency appeared again. Not identical, but close. Lucy wrote it down rather than deciding what it meant. Marcus's voice echoed in her head. Tell me what the records say. So Lucy kept reading. Because compassion had brought her to the table, now she needed evidence to keep her there. At 1:41 on Sunday morning, Lucy Brooks stopped looking for a pattern. That was when she finally began to see one. The kitchen table was buried beneath copies of tenant files. Kayla had fallen asleep hours earlier. The radiator clicked beside the window, and Lucy's coffee had gone cold enough to reflect the ceiling light. She opened a spreadsheet on her old laptop. Margaret Ellis, Walter Simmons, Patricia Cole, Raymond Hill, Gloria Benton. Lucy created columns. Notice issued. Service claimed. Payment made. Payment processed. Known location of tenant. Supporting record. She entered only facts. No assumptions. No conclusions. Margaret's notice claimed personal service on November 12th. Hospital admission November 11th. Hospital discharge November 13th. Walter's file was different. His notice did not claim personal service, but the mailing date printed on the notice did not match the postmark on the envelope he had saved. Patricia's payment history showed rent accepted after management claimed her occupancy status was unresolved. Raymond's documents contained an address discrepancy. Gloria's notice recorded attempted contact during the same afternoon. A hospital parking receipt placed her miles away with her husband. Lucy stared at the screen. None of those facts alone proved misconduct. Marcus had drilled that lesson into her. So she kept going. At 2:18 a.m., Kayla appeared in the hallway. Mom, Lucy turned. What are you doing awake? You always ask me that, because you're always awake when you shouldn't be. Kayla walked to the table. Are those all receipts? Some things that matter? Lucy smiled. Maybe. Kayla pointed towards Margaret's grocery receipt. Lucy had made a copy for the file. That's the Lady Margaret. The soup lady. Lucy nodded. Kayla examined the receipt. What does this prove? Lucy looked at the timestamp. 11:46 p.m. It proves she bought groceries. That's not very exciting. Most proof isn't. Kayla returned to bed. Lucy remained staring at the receipt. Then she noticed the loyalty account information. Harbor Market's records connected Margaret's purchase history to the same neighborhood where she had lived for years. Lucy opened another section of the file. The property company's correspondence described Margaret as someone whose continuing occupancy could not be adequately established after Denise's death. One internal notation even used the phrase possible abandonment. Lucy sat upright. The grocery receipt did not prove lawful tenancy. It did not prove anyone had lied. But it was one more ordinary footprint. Pharmacy purchases nearby, utility payments, rent money orders, medical correspondence, groceries. Margaret had not vanished. Her life had continued around the same address. By Monday evening, Lucy had 37 rows in her spreadsheet. She carried the laptop into Marcus's office. I finished. Marcus looked at the time. You look terrible. Thank you. That wasn't criticism. It somehow sounded worse. Lucy turned the laptop toward him. Marcus read silently. 5 minutes passed, then 10. He pointed to one row. This doesn't belong. Why, you're treating a payment processed after a notice as evidence the notice was invalid. Lucy looked again. He was right. She deleted the row. Marcus pointed to another. This one too. Lucy frowned. But the dates could be coincidence. She removed it. For the next 40 minutes, Marcus attacked her theory. Every assumption, every weak connection, every fact that could have an innocent explanation. Lucy became increasingly frustrated. When they finished, nearly a third of her highlighted entries were gone. There, Marcus said. Lucy stared at what remained. Fewer rows. But the surviving pattern looked cleaner, stronger. She slowly understood what he had done. You weren't trying to prove me wrong. I was hoping I could. Why? Because if there's an innocent explanation, we need to find it before opposing counsel does. Lucy looked again. Multiple tenants? Similar service irregularities. Payment records inconsistent with abandonment narratives. Notices affecting residents who were elderly, disabled recently, bereaved, or otherwise vulnerable. Marcus leaned back. This is enough to ask harder questions. Is it enough for a case? Not yet. Lucy pointed toward Margaret's grocery receipt. What about this? What about it? Her purchase history. Pharmacy records. Utilities. Money orders. All around the same address. It helps establish continuity. And the 2587 receipt. A supporting detail. Lucy smiled faintly. So it matters. Marcus gave her a look. Don't become sentimental about evidence. Too late. The next step was harder. Evidence required people. People had fear. Marcus scheduled a meeting with the affected tenants on Wednesday evening. 9 came. They sat in folding chairs inside the largest conference room. Walter Simmons wanted to fight. Patricia Cole did not. Raymond worried management would find another reason to remove him. Gloria was caring for her husband, and said she had no strength for court. Margaret sat quietly in the corner holding her blue cookie tin. Marcus explained what they knew, then what they did not know. We may be able to challenge some of these actions, he said, but we need residents willing to participate. That may mean statements, records, perhaps testimony. The room changed. People who had been angry became frightened. Margaret looked at Lucy. What happens if we lose? Marcus answered. I can't promise outcomes. Margaret lowered her eyes. After the meeting, Lucy found her alone near the elevator. You okay now? Margaret held the cookie tin against her chest. I'm 74 years old, Lucy. I buried my sister this year. I don't want to spend whatever time I have left fighting people with offices full of lawyers. You don't have to. If I say no, will you think I'm a coward? No. Margaret studied her face. You mean that yes? The elevator arrived. Margaret stepped inside, then turned before the doors closed. If I stay quiet, what happens to the woman in the apartment after mine? Lucy had no answer. Neither did Marcus, standing farther down the hallway. The doors closed. The next morning, Margaret called. Her voice shook, but her words did not. Tell Mr. Reed he can use my name. Lucy closed her eyes. You're sure? No, Margaret said. Then came a small, tired laugh. But I'm willing. On Lucy's desk lay the original Harbor Market receipt, 2587. A piece of paper that had once represented a woman who could not afford her groceries had become one small piece of evidence that she had a life, a routine, an address, a place in the world. Lucy carefully returned it to its protective folder. For the first time, they were no longer simply looking. They were preparing to stand. The first letter arrived on a Monday. It was 12 pages long. By Tuesday, there were 3 more. By Friday, Marcus Reed's conference table was covered with certified mail responses, procedural notices, requests for records and correspondence from attorneys representing the property management company. There were no threats, no men waiting in dark parking lots, nothing dramatic enough to become a police report. That was what made the pressure effective. It looked ordinary. Deadlines, forms, language written carefully enough to frighten people without ever raising its voice. At 6:23 p.m., Lucy found Walter Simmons sitting in reception holding one of the letters. I'm done, he said. Lucy sat beside him. What happened? Walter handed her the envelope. They got 6 lawyers. Lucy looked at the letterhead. There are 6 names on the page. Exactly. That doesn't mean 6 lawyers are working on you. How many do I have Lucy look toward Marcus's office? At least one very annoying one. Walter almost smiled. Then his expression collapsed. I drove a city bus 31 years. Never missed rent unless I was in a hospital. I don't want my grandchildren watching somebody put my furniture on a sidewalk. Lucy wanted to say it would never happen. She remembered Teresa. So she didn't. We don't know where this ends, she said, but Marcus is reviewing the letter tonight. Walter looked at her. And what do I do? Keep every document. Answer when we call. Don't sign anything without understanding it. He nodded. It was not comfort, but it was something solid. The pressure reached Harbor Market 2 days later. Kevin Parker called Lucy into his office. Again. This time he did not look irritated. He looked worried. A document lay on his desk. What is that request for transaction verification? Lucy recognized Margaret's date immediately. November 14th. Her stomach tightened. They're asking whether a transaction occurred at Lane 6. Kevin looked at her. Your name is attached to this legal thing. I'm not a party. Then why is your employee ID in a file being requested by attorneys? Lucy explained carefully. She had never accessed store records for the legal center. She had never used employee privileges to retrieve customer information. Everything she knew came from the transaction she had personally handled and documents Margaret provided. Kevin listened. Then he leaned back. Lucy, I need you to hear me clearly. I'm listening. You cannot use Harbor Market systems for this. I haven't. You cannot pull loyalty records. I know you cannot ask another employee to pull them. I know. And if an attorney needs something, it goes through corporate. Lucy nodded. Understood. Kevin rubbed his forehead. You have a talent for making $26 complicated. Lucy almost laughed. I've noticed. Then Kevin's expression became serious again. There's something else. Lucy knew before he said it. Schedule, I can give you 22 hours next week. I need 30. I don't have 30. You gave Eric 32. Eric has open availability. So this is because of the legal center. This is because I schedule people when I need them. Lucy stood. Kevin looked genuinely uncomfortable. I'm not punishing you. It feels remarkably similar from this side of the desk. That night, Lucy calculated everything again. 22 hours at Harbor Market, 18 at the legal center, rent, electricity, childcare, gas, groceries. The numbers did not care about principles. At 11:03 p.m., she sat at the kitchen table while Kayla slept. The cereal box marked "Things That Matter" rested beside the calculator. Lucy stared at it. She could ask Kevin for full availability again, quit the legal center, take every shift, return to something predictable. No one would blame her, especially not Margaret. The next evening, Margaret came to the legal center, carrying her blue cookie tin. She had heard about Lucy's reduced hours from a conversation she was never supposed to hear. You're quitting, Margaret said. Lucy looked up. That sounded less like a question. You should. Lucy stared at her. Margaret sat down. You have a child. So I will not have you risking your rent because of mine. This isn't only your case anymore. It started with me. No, it started before you. We just didn't see it. Margaret opened the cookie tin and removed the Harbor Market receipt. $25.87. She placed it on Lucy's desk. You already did enough. Lucy looked at the paper. Take your name out of the case, Margaret continued. Tell Marcus you don't remember the notice. Go back to your job. Lucy's head lifted. You want me to lie? I want you safe. The words landed differently. Lucy thought about Kayla at the bus stop. Sometimes you just help somebody get through one bad hour. That had been easy to say. This was not one bad hour anymore. This was months of rent records, years of addresses, people who had left because they believed nobody would listen. Lucy touched the receipt. I'm not going to use store records. I'm not going to say anything I didn't actually see. Lucy, but I saw your notice. Margaret closed her eyes. I saw the date. I saw the money order receipt. I handled your transaction. Those are facts. You could lose hours. I already did. You could lose your job. Yes. Margaret's voice broke. I don't want that on me. Lucy reached across the desk. It isn't. The following morning, Marcus placed a witness statement in front of Lucy. Read every line. She did, twice. He had removed anything she could not personally verify. No theories, no accusations. Only what happened at Lane 6. Margaret's card declined. Documents fell. Lucy observed dates. Lucy asked about the apartment. Lucy paid $25.87. Marcus placed a pen beside the statement. You do not have to sign this. Lucy looked at him. If I don't, we build the case without your statement if we can. No pressure, no speech. The decision remained hers. Lucy thought about her daughter. About Margaret. About the written warning at Harbor Market. About the textbooks beneath her bed. Then she remembered something she had told Kayla long before any lawyer walked into Lane 6. Being broke means you think there's nothing you can do. Budgeting means you decide where things go. Maybe courage worked the same way? Lucy picked up the pen. She signed carefully. Lucy Brooks. Marcus took the statement. He did not congratulate her. He simply nodded. Now we make sure every word can stand on its own. Lucy looked through the conference room glass. Margaret was waiting outside with the blue cookie tin against her chest. For months, paperwork had been used to make people like her feel powerless. Now Lucy had added one more piece of paper to the pile. Only this one carried her name. On the morning the hearing began, Margaret Ellis wore the same charcoal coat she had worn to Harbor Market. Lucy noticed immediately. You have other coats, Lucy said. Margaret adjusted the collar. I have one other coat. Then why this one? Margaret slipped her hand into the pocket. When it came out, she was holding the folded $25.87 receipt. Because this one has good pockets. Lucy smiled. Neither woman mentioned that Margaret's hands were shaking. The proceeding was not held in a grand courtroom. It took place in a government hearing room with beige walls, fluorescent lights, and rows of hard wooden benches. The property management company had attorneys at one table. Marcus Reed sat at another with the legal center's supervising attorney. Lucy was behind them with organized exhibits. She was not there to argue law. Her job was smaller. Timelines, documents, dates, and making sure nothing important disappeared inside a stack of paper. The company's position sounded reasonable when stated cleanly. Administrative transitions had occurred after ownership changes. Some records were incomplete. Some tenants had outdated occupancy classifications. Any incorrect dates, their attorney argued, could be clerical mistakes rather than evidence of improper conduct. Lucy listened. That was the problem with bureaucracy. Cruelty rarely introduced itself as cruelty. Sometimes it called itself procedure. Marcus did not accuse anyone of a conspiracy. He did something less dramatic. He asked questions. Why did multiple residents have service dates inconsistent with hospital records, postmarks, or other independent documents? Why were payments accepted after residents were described as having unresolved or abandoned occupancy? Why did similar irregularities appear disproportionately among elderly, disabled, or recently bereaved tenants? One mistake could happen. Two could happen. But eventually, repetition demanded explanation. The company attorney challenged several examples. One was removed. Another turned out to be ambiguous. Lucy watched Marcus let them go without resistance. Weeks earlier, she would have seen that as losing. Now she understood. A weak fact could damage strong ones. Then, Margaret's name was called. Lucy looked toward her. Margaret did not move. Ms. Ellis, Marcus said softly. Margaret's fingers closed around the receipt inside her pocket. Then she stood. At first, the questions were simple. Name, age, address. How long have you lived there? 17 years. With whom? My sister Denise. What happened to Denise? Margaret swallowed. She died in March. Her voice became quieter. For the next several minutes, Margaret's apartment stopped being a unit number. It became a home. She described the kitchen where Denise made sweet potato pie every Thanksgiving. The radiator they had complained about every winter. The window facing the alley where they watched neighborhood children grow up. She described caring for Denise during the last year of her illness. Then came the paperwork. Did you understand the occupancy notices? No. Why didn't you ask for help sooner? Margaret looked toward the table. I was ashamed of what not understanding. The room became very quiet. Margaret continued. When people think you're old, they repeat the same words louder. They don't always explain them better. Lucy lowered her eyes. Marcus showed Margaret the November 12th notice. Were you personally given this document on November 12th? No. Where were you, Mercy Hospital? The medical records had already confirmed it. Then came the rent money order, November 14th, processed afterward. Then pharmacy and utility records. Finally, the grocery receipt. The company attorney objected to treating a grocery purchase as proof of lawful tenancy. Marcus agreed. It isn't? Lucy glanced at him. Marcus continued. It is one supporting record among many showing Ms. Ellis maintained an ordinary, continuous life centered around the same residence and neighborhood during the period in question. The distinction mattered. No miracle receipt, no dramatic revelation, just another fact refusing to disappear. Other residents spoke. Walter Simmons described 31 years driving Baltimore buses. Patricia Cole explained why she had nearly moved out without challenging her notice. Raymond Hill admitted he had thrown away his first letter because he thought people with lawyers automatically won. Gloria Benton produced hospital records showing where she had been during an alleged contact attempt. One by one, case numbers became human beings. During a recess, Margaret sat beside Lucy. You think it's going well? Lucy remembered Marcus's lesson. I don't know. Margaret gave her a sideways glance. You've been spending too much time with that lawyer. Lucy smiled. But they're listening. Margaret nodded. That's enough for today. The proceeding lasted hours. No judge slammed a gavel and declared victory. No company executive confessed. Instead, after review and negotiation, an interim agreement was reached. Removal actions involving the disputed residents would be paused. Occupancy records would undergo additional review. The contested service practices would be examined. Residents would receive time to submit supporting documentation and representation. Margaret could stay. For now. Outside the building, Walter hugged Marcus so hard, the lawyer nearly dropped his briefcase. Patricia cried. Gloria called her husband. Margaret stood on the steps looking at traffic. Lucy approached. You okay? Margaret nodded. I thought I'd feel different. How like somebody won. Lucy looked back at the building. Maybe nobody won yet. Margaret turned toward her. Then she extended her hand. Lucy stared at it. What's this, thank you? Lucy took it. Margaret's grip was surprisingly strong. You didn't save me, Margaret said. Lucy felt something tighten in her chest. You helped me find where to stand. Lucy could not answer immediately. Margaret released her hand and walked toward Walter and Patricia. Marcus came down the steps carrying 2 boxes. He handed one to Lucy. What now? Review continues. I meant me. Marcus stopped. Lucy's 6-week temporary contract ended Friday. For all the work, all the nights, all the evidence, nothing guaranteed, she would remain. Marcus understood the question. We talk Friday. That sounds ominous. It's a calendar date. Lucy rolled her eyes and took the box. That evening, she returned home to find Kayla at the kitchen table. Well, they get to stay while everything gets reviewed. Kayla smiled. So you won? Lucy thought about Margaret's words. No, She placed a copy of the interim agreement inside the cereal box marked "Things That Matter." But they got somewhere to stand. Later, after Kayla went to bed, Lucy looked at Marcus's original business card. 6 weeks earlier, it had represented a door. Now that door was closing unless something came next. And for the first time, Lucy realized how badly she wanted it to remain open. Friday arrived without ceremony. At 5:56 p.m., Lucy Brooks finished an intake report, corrected 2 dates, saved the file, and looked at the clock. Her 6-week contract ended at 6. 4 minutes. She had imagined Marcus Reed would call her into his office earlier. He had not. At 5:58, Lucy began cleaning her desk. A yellow highlighter, 2 pens, an old legal pad, a photograph Kayla had drawn of them standing beside the Malibu, which looked considerably healthier in crayon than in reality. At exactly 6, Marcus appeared. "Why are you packing? My contract ended 30 seconds ago. Conference room." Lucy followed him. Rachel Davis from operations was already seated inside. A folder lay on the table. Lucy sat. Rachel spoke first. "We'd like to offer you a permanent position as an intake specialist." Lucy blinked. Marcus said nothing. "How permanent?" Rachel smiled. "That's generally not how permanent works." Lucy looked at the offer. The salary would not make her wealthy, but combined with benefits and predictable hours, it could change the rhythm of her household. Then she saw the condition: paralegal certificate required within 18 months. Marcus finally spoke. "You started the program. You can finish it." Lucy stared at him. "What if I can't?" "Then eventually you become ineligible for the position." There it was. No rescue. Even now. You couldn't just leave that part out. No, Rachel slid another document toward her. The center offered limited tuition assistance. Lucy would still need financial aid and careful scheduling. She read everything twice, then signed. On Monday, Lucy called Baltimore City Community College. 2 weeks later, she sat at her kitchen table completing a financial aid application. The questions seemed designed to make exhaustion measurable. Income, dependents, prior enrollment, tax information. Kayla sat across from her doing homework. "Are you going back to school?" "I'm trying. You told me school was a different road." Lucy smiled. "I think I found the turn back." She did not quit Harbor Market immediately. For several months, Lucy kept one weekend shift. Some coworkers asked why. "You work at a law office now, so aren't you done with this place?" Lucy looked down at her Harbor Market vest. No. Lane 6 had paid rent when nothing else could. There was dignity in that. She refused to rewrite survival as embarrassment just because another opportunity had appeared. Her new schedule became brutal: legal center during the day, classes 2 evenings each week, assignments after Kayla slept, laundry between chapters, groceries during lunch breaks. At 1:13 one Thursday morning, Kayla woke for water and found Lucy asleep at the kitchen table. Her cheek rested on an open textbook. A highlighter remained between her fingers. Kayla quietly pulled the cereal box marked "Things That Matter" closer, so Lucy would not knock it onto the floor. Then she draped a blanket over her mother. Lucy woke at 2:07. For a moment, she did not know where she was. Then she saw the chapter title. Civil Procedure. "Wonderful," she whispered. 3 weeks later, Lucy failed her first major assessment, 64%. She stared at the grade on her laptop. The room seemed to shrink. 4 years earlier, she had left school telling herself it was temporary. Now the old fear returned with brutal simplicity. Maybe life had moved on without her. Maybe she had been good at organizing Margaret's receipts because she was a cashier who noticed things. Maybe Marcus had mistaken determination for ability. Lucy closed the laptop. The next morning, she carried the failed test into work. Marcus saw her expression. "What happened?" She placed the paper on his desk. He read the grade. "I failed." "Yes." Lucy waited. "That's all. What would you like?" "I don't know." "Encouragement." Marcus handed the test back. "No." Lucy stared at him. You are genuinely terrible at mentoring. What did you miss I just told you? The test. No. Which questions? Lucy looked down. Deadlines. Filing sequence. 2 terminology questions. Then those are your problem. You don't think this means something. It means you got 64%. What if I fail again, then we'll have more data. Lucy almost threw the paper at him. Marcus leaned back. Lucy, you're trying to turn one bad grade into a verdict because quitting would relieve the uncertainty. That stopped her. He tapped the test. Don't dramatize it. Study it. That evening, Lucy did. She marked every wrong answer. She created flashcards. She asked questions in class instead of pretending she understood. She spent Saturday morning at the library while Kayla read beside her. 3 weeks later, Lucy took the assessment again. 88%. She did not scream. She did not call Marcus. She printed the result. At home, Kayla watched her fold it. Where's that going? Lucy pointed toward the cereal box. Kayla opened it ceremoniously. Inside were receipts, Lucy's first legal center pay stub the interim housing agreement, a bus ticket from the week the Malibu had no gas, and other small records of days that might otherwise have disappeared. Lucy placed the test inside. Kayla looked at the score. You got an 88 apparently. That's good. It's 24 points better than terrible. Kayla grinned. Lucy closed the box. For years, she had imagined opportunity as something that would arrive and remove difficulty. A better job. More money. Someone powerful saying everything would be all right. Marcus had offered none of that. He had opened a door and then refused to carry her through it. Months passed. Lucy completed one course, then another. She made mistakes at work and corrected them. Margaret occasionally visited the center, usually carrying more paperwork than necessary. The housing review continued. Life did not transform in a single dramatic moment. It accumulated. One assignment, one paycheck, one bus ride. One difficult morning after another. Then, nearly a year after Margaret's debit card had been declined at Lane 6, Lucy opened an envelope from Baltimore City Community College. Kayla stood beside her. Lucy unfolded the paper. Certificate requirements completed. For several seconds, she said nothing. Kayla screamed enough for both of them. Lucy laughed and pulled her daughter close. Later, she placed the letter inside Things That Matter. The cereal box was nearly falling apart now. Lucy ran her fingers over Kayla's uneven handwriting. The opportunity had never been the promise that somebody would save her. It had been the chance to prove she could still become the woman she had once planned to be, and this time Lucy Brooks had walked the entire distance herself. 1 year after Margaret Ellis's debit card was declined, at Lane 6, Lucy Brooks still kept $20 folded behind her driver's license. Not because $20 could solve much, because she remembered exactly what 27 cents felt like. At 8:17, on a Tuesday morning, Lucy entered the Baltimore Community Legal Center, carrying coffee in one hand and a canvas work bag in the other. The receptionist looked up. Morning, counselor. Lucy stopped. Don't start, I said, counselor adjacent. You absolutely did not. Lucy smiled and continued down the hallway. A small brass plate beside her desk now read Lucy Brooks Paralegal. She had photographed it the day Marcus installed it. Then she had immediately told him it was crooked. It's level. It isn't. You've been a paralegal 6 minutes, and already I found my first problem. The plate was still there. So was Lucy. Her life had changed, though not in the way people liked to describe change. There was no luxury apartment, no new SUV waiting outside, no miraculous bank account. Lucy still lived in West Baltimore with Kayla. She still compared grocery prices. She still kept receipts. And the Chevrolet Malibu had survived another year through a combination of replacement parts, stubbornness, and what Lucy called mechanical prayer. But the electricity no longer depended on which bill she delayed. Kayla's school trips no longer required emergency arithmetic. Lucy had health insurance, paid time off, a retirement account containing an amount small enough to be almost funny but real enough to matter. Most importantly, she knew what came next month. Predictability, Lucy had discovered, was an underrated form of wealth. She reached her desk. The cereal box was gone. After the cardboard finally split, Kayla had transferred everything into a wooden box she found at a thrift store. She painted 3 words across the lid. Things that matter. Beside it stood a small frame. Inside was the Harbor Market receipt. $25.87. No inspirational quotation, no explanation, only the date. Marcus once asked why she framed it. Lucy had answered, "So I remember. Remember what?" She looked at him. That I had no idea what I was starting. The housing case had changed too. The review did not destroy the property management company or send executives to prison. Reality was less theatrical. But serious procedural failures were documented. Several tenant files were reopened. Occupancy records were corrected. New notice procedures were required. Residents received clearer opportunities to challenge adverse decisions. Some who had already moved could not simply return. That fact remained painful. Victory had edges. But Margaret kept her apartment, and Margaret did something Lucy had not expected. Every Wednesday from 10 until 2, she volunteered at the Legal Center's tenant resource desk. She arrived carrying the same blue cookie tin. Now it contained blank folders, paper clips, and sticky notes. That morning, Lucy passed the resource room and heard Margaret speaking to an elderly man. "No, don't apologize. I should have understood the letter." Why, the man looked confused. Margaret pushed a folder toward him. "You're here to understand it now. That's what matters." Lucy stood outside the doorway and smiled. Margaret noticed. "What, nothing? You're hovering. I work here. Then go work." Lucy obeyed. Marcus had changed in quieter ways. He still refused false promises. He still crossed out weak arguments without mercy. But clients no longer left his office without understanding what happened next. Sometimes Lucy heard him say, "I don't know whether we can win this." Then, "But you won't have to read the paperwork alone." She never reminded him where that sentence came from. She did not need to. At 2:46 that afternoon, Lucy's desk phone rang. Baltimore Community Legal Center. Lucy Brooks speaking. A woman answered. "Is this the place that helps with rent notices?" "Yes." There was hesitation. "I'm calling from Harbor Market." Lucy's pen stopped. "Which location?" The answer was hers. For a moment she saw Lane 6 beneath fluorescent lights. "What's your name, Jasmine Carter? I work checkout?" Jasmine sounded young, embarrassed. "My manager said maybe somebody there could explain something. What did you receive a notice from my landlord? Do you have it with you?" "Yes. What does it say?" Silence. Then Jasmine whispered, "I don't know." Lucy recognized the shame instantly. "That's okay." "No, it's not. I've read it like 5 times. Reading something 5 times doesn't make badly written language better." Jasmine gave a nervous laugh. Lucy asked a few basic questions. Jasmine was 27, raising a 5-year-old son. Her hours had recently been cut. She had received 2 housing notices and hidden the first one inside a kitchen drawer. Lucy's chest tightened. Marcus's mother, Margaret, different lives, same drawer. "Can you come here tomorrow?" Lucy asked. "I work until 8 every day this week." Lucy looked at her calendar. "Then I'll come to you. You do that." Lucy glanced at Marcus's office. "We do now." After hanging up, she walked to his doorway. "I'm doing an off-site intake tomorrow." Marcus looked up. "Where, Harbor Market?" He studied her face. "That seems suspiciously personal. It's also practical. Document your time. Very emotional response. I'm overwhelmed." Lucy turned to leave. "Lucy." She looked back. Marcus nodded toward the framed receipt on her desk. "Take whatever forms you need." At 8:14 the following evening, Lucy stood outside Harbor Market. The automatic doors opened. The smell hit first. Coffee from the kiosk, floor cleaner, bakery bread. Then the sounds. Scanner beeps, cartwheels, cash drawers. For 4 years, those sounds had measured her working life. Lucy walked inside. Kevin Parker was near customer service. His eyes widened. "Well, look who escaped. I prefer graduated." He shook her hand. "Congratulations, by the way. Thank you." Kevin nodded toward the registers. "She's finishing up." Lucy followed his gaze. Lane 6. A young black woman stood behind the register scanning groceries while repeatedly glancing toward a brown envelope beneath the counter. Lucy knew that look too. Jasmine Carter finished with her customer. Kevin gave her a nod. She removed her vest and approached Lucy. "You're Ms. Brooks, Lucy." Jasmine held the envelope against her chest. "I almost didn't call. I almost didn't answer a lawyer once." Jasmine looked confused. "Long story." They walked toward the employee break area. As Lucy passed lane 6, she slowed. For an instant, she could see Margaret removing soup from a grocery bag. $26 in her bank account, a yellow notice on the floor, a thin strip of paper between two strangers. Lucy touched the folder inside her bag. She had returned to Harbor Market carrying no check, no miracle, no promise that Jasmine's problem would disappear. Only knowledge, time, and the chance to help another woman understand where she could stand. Lucy opened the break room door. "Okay," she said. "Show me the notice." Jasmine placed the brown envelope on the table. Then from her purse, she pulled out a thick handful of crumpled receipts. "I was going to throw these away." Lucy looked at them and smiled. Lucy Brooks pulled out the chair beside Jasmine Carter. "Don't throw those away." Jasmine looked at the crumpled receipts in her hand. These especially those. The Harbor Market break room had changed very little. Same humming vending machine, same scarred table, same refrigerator covered with reminders nobody read. Lucy remembered eating hurried dinners there between shifts. Now she opened her legal pad. "Let's start with the notice." Jasmine unfolded it. "My landlord says I didn't respond to an earlier letter. Did you receive one?" Jasmine hesitated. "What did you do with it? Kitchen drawer." Lucy stopped writing. "Of course. Why I didn't understand it? That's a reason to ask questions, not a reason to be ashamed." Jasmine looked away. "Easy to say when you work at a legal center." Lucy smiled faintly. "A year ago I worked that register." She pointed through the wall toward lane 6. Jasmine looked at her. "You 4 years." Lucy returned to the notice. She did not tell Jasmine everything would be fine. She did not promise to save her apartment. Instead, she wrote a list: lease, rent receipts, bank records, previous notices, maintenance correspondence. "Tomorrow call this number and schedule a full intake." Jasmine stared at the list. "You can't just handle it." "No." Disappointment crossed her face. Lucy leaned forward. "I can help you understand the process. Our attorneys can determine what legal options you have. But you collect the records, you make the calls, you show up. What if I mess it up?" "Then you ask questions." Jasmine looked at the receipts again. Lucy tapped them. "Keep the receipts. Sometimes proof matters." The words felt different now. Not like advice from a cashier, not even advice from a paralegal. They sounded like something passed from one person to another. Jasmine carefully placed the receipts inside her envelope. 3 weeks later, she arrived at the legal center with everything Lucy requested. Not perfectly organized, not complete, but enough to begin. And she had made the appointment herself. Lucy watched from her desk as Jasmine checked in at reception. Margaret Ellis was volunteering nearby. She glanced from Jasmine to Lucy. "You collecting cashiers now?" Lucy laughed. Apparently. Margaret carried her blue cookie tin toward Jasmine. "Come on, honey. Let's get those papers sorted." Lucy watched them sit together. Then she returned to work. Months later, Lucy stopped at Harbor Market after work with Kayla. Kayla was 9 now and had developed strong opinions about breakfast cereal. This one. No. Why? Because $11 for cereal is an act of violence. Kayla laughed and returned the box. They eventually reached lane 6. Jasmine was working. "Ms. Brooks. Lucy. You say that every time." And yet, an elderly woman was ahead of them. Her groceries were already bagged. She searched her purse while Jasmine watched the total. "I'm short," the woman whispered. "How much? $4.60. Lucy saw Jasmine's hand move toward her pocket, then stop. For a moment, Lucy knew exactly what she was thinking. Jasmine could pay. Sometimes that was still the right answer. But then Jasmine looked toward customer service. "Ms. Turner, did you use your senior grocery voucher this month?" The woman blinked. What Jasmine called someone from customer service. 2 minutes later, they discovered the woman qualified for a community grocery voucher already available through a local assistance program. The amount covered more than the shortage. The elderly woman stared at Jasmine. "Nobody told me. I'm telling you now." Jasmine handed her the receipt. "Keep this." Lucy smiled. Jasmine caught her expression. What nothing. Outside evening settled over Baltimore. Kayla carried one grocery bag while Lucy carried the other. At the Malibu, Kayla stopped. "Mom, yeah, is that the lady?" "Which lady? The cashier you helped?" Lucy looked through the windows. Jasmine was already scanning another customer's groceries. Sort of. Kayla climbed into the passenger seat. As Lucy started the car, Kayla asked another question. "Was $25.87 the best money you ever spent?" Lucy paused. The dashboard glowed. The check engine light was gone now. Finally. She thought about Margaret. Marcus. The legal center. Her certificate. Jasmine. The strange chain connecting all of them. "No." Kayla frowned. "No, I didn't buy any of that." "Then what did you buy?" Lucy looked toward Harbor Market. "I bought groceries." "That's boring." Lucy laughed. "It is." She started driving. After a block, she added, "I just made sure somebody didn't have to stand there alone." Kayla considered that. Then she leaned against the window. At the legal center the next morning, sunlight fell across Lucy's desk. Inside the wooden box marked "Things That Matter" were fragments of an ordinary life. A bus ticket, an exam score, her first legal center pay stub, her certificate letter, and other pieces of paper most people would have thrown away. Beside the box stood the framed receipt, $25.87. It had not purchased Lucy a career. It had not won Margaret's housing case. It had not transformed anyone through magic. It had simply marked a moment when one struggling woman saw another struggling woman and refused to look away. Margaret had later found the courage to stand. Marcus had recognized an ability Lucy had buried. Lucy had returned to school. Margaret began helping tenants. Lucy helped Jasmine, and Jasmine had already begun helping someone else. A knock sounded at Lucy's door. A frightened elderly man stood outside holding an envelope. "Ms. Brooks, yes. They told me you might help me understand this." Lucy looked at the chair across from her. "Of course." He sat. Before opening the envelope, Lucy noticed a receipt sticking from his coat pocket. She smiled. First thing she said, "Don't throw that away." Sometimes kindness changed nothing immediately. Sometimes it merely opened a door. The miracle was never that someone opened it for you. The miracle was learning to walk through it yourself and remembering to hold it open for the person coming behind you. We often imagine kindness as something enormous, a check that erases every debt, a stranger who fixes an entire life, or a miracle arriving exactly when hope is gone. But most real kindness is much smaller. Sometimes it costs $25.87. Lucy did not know whether helping Margaret was wise. She certainly did not know it would lead anywhere. She simply saw another human being trying to make herself smaller so she would not inconvenience the world. and Lucy refused to let her stand there alone. But the most important part of this story is what happened afterward. Marcus did not rescue Lucy. He recognized her ability and offered a door. Lucy still had to study fail-return work sacrifice and walk through it herself. And once she'd found stable ground, she did not turn around to admire how far she had come. She reached back. That is the difference between charity and empowerment. The deepest kindness does not make someone dependent on the person who helped them. It restores dignity, reveals possibility, and gives them room to stand on their own. So perhaps the question is not whether you can change someone's life today. Maybe it is simpler. Can you make sure someone does not have to face one difficult moment alone? And if someone once did that for you, perhaps today is your chance to hold the door. If this story reminded you of someone, share it with them. Tell us in the comments about a small kindness you never forgot, and subscribe if you'd like to join us for more stories about ordinary people whose choices quietly change lives.